All right, getting started here. I'm going to wait a couple minutes for everyone to join. Going to give it a couple minutes here. So today we're going to be talking about S19, hashboards, chips on the board, various issues we have, problems, also pluses and minuses of the board. So stay tuned. We're going to start it in a couple minutes here. All right, we're going to wait till we get some more viewers, and then we're going to start it up. Hey, hello, Anna93. Yeah, crypto night. Interesting. Anna93. All right, we're still waiting for more viewers to hop on in here. And then we're going to start it up. Maybe another minute or two. Everything looks good. You guys can all hear me, right? Hey, Anna93, can you hear me? Is the audio good? Hey, Panaman Mom's Kitchen. Still waiting. Maybe another minute, we're going to start. Let me know, Poonam Mom's Kitchen, if you can hear me good. Make sure the audio is working fine. We're talking about the S19J Pro and the S19 Pro. Okay, good. Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah, we're talking about those two boards. So I'm showing you guys how the boards work. Giving you guys some close-up shots, talking about various issues we had with the boards, also pluses and minuses, compared to other boards like the S17 Plus, and so on. So we're talking about ASIC-related things for today's video. All right, so another 30 seconds, and I'm going to start. And you guys can throw in some questions if you want through the chat, so throw them in there. I'll check the chat periodically, see how things are going. Okay, so let's start it up. All right. So today's video, we're going to be talking about the S19 J Pro and the S19 Pro. This is the J and this is the regular Pro. They're both Pro. It's J Pro, regular Pro. We're talking about various issues the boards had, over the years. We had them running, what we ran into. Also going over how they're kind of built, how the signals are being transferred from chip to chip. Talk about the heat sinks, the upgrades from the S17 Plus, and so on. So if you think that's interesting, you guys know what to do. Hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel. You go to cryptollc.org if you want to set up a GPU or ASIC mining farm. So we set up farms for clients all over the United States. We could actually set up farms anywhere in the world. So if you want to set up a farm for yourself, an ASIC farm or a GPU farm, go to cryptollc.org. We also sell GPUs and ASICs. You can check out our Excel spreadsheet. We have current prices there. You can take a look and see if you want to go the GPU route or the ASIC route. All depends on your price of electricity, where you're located, your quantity amount, and so on. Right now is a great time to jump in. Prices are down. ASICs are really affordable right now, so make sure you jump in on that. And before we get started, Bitcoin saves your wealth and Jesus Christ saves your soul. All right, so today's video, talking about these two boards. I'll move this one over here. I'll get this out of the way, make some room. Okay, I'm going to put this Pro here, and then the J Pro here. All right, so first of all, I'm going to show you guys the difference between the regular Pro, this is the cheaper version, it's an older version, versus the J Pro. Now, if you get either this Pro or this Pro, the efficiency is the same. There is no difference in efficiency. What they ended up doing at Bitmain is they ended up upgrading the actual way they built the PCB board. And they got rid of the PIC processor. So I'll show you the difference. You can see here, we have the PCB board. It's just green. It's got the power coming down, powering the chips. You got your plus, your minus, your connection here, and you have your PIC processor right there. There we go. It's got that PIC processor. Let me get a pen. That's your PIC processor right there. And what they ended up doing with the J is they got rid of the PIC processor. Not all J boards have this, J Pro, but most of them, they got rid of the PIC processor. They switched to a different way of managing the board. They don't use that anymore. I think they're using different chips now. They're using different logic chips. So that's out. Next thing they ended up changing is the way they're distributing power and the way they're pulling in negative. You can see that on this board, we have power coming in, negative coming in, going into the board. On this one, we have a solid piece of metal rather than a built-in to the PCB board positive and negative. It's a little bit different. Also, they did very, very big changes, such as placement of power supply, regulators, different chips. You can see how they moved the oscillators, the regulators, the capacitors. They're different now. If you go over to this board here, you see how they are different. So they redesigned the board. The board is fully redesigned. Heat sinks are about the same. You see on this J Pro, 2 heat sinks. You got multiple screws holding the heat sink. And then on the regular Pro, also 2 heat sinks. But there is one gigantic change that they did that makes the board look really, really, really nice for the J Pro versus the regular Pro. Is look what we have on the regular Pro. We have our standard PCB, so it's just the board. We have chips on this side of the PCB. You see all of our regulators and capacitors and resistors and logic chips and things like that, temp sensors. And then each chip has a heatsink on it. So this board comes with 114 chips, right? 114 of them. It runs at 110 terahash, 110, 114 chips. That's how the PCB board looks on this guy. Now, when I flip over to this J Pro, you'll see a big change in the PCB board. The PCB is actually covered in this metal. Don't mind this, that's just some dust. But it's covered in this metal like sheeting. It's very, very interesting. I have never seen a PCB board, a motherboard, a GPU or anything like that. Any board that has this type of metal cover, and we can see that there are no chips. There are no chips. We don't see any resistors or capacitors or logic chips or temp sensors or anything like that. It is fully covered. We do have heat sinks here, but instead of having heat sinks for every chip, we have 3 heat sinks. 1, 2, 3. It's covering the other side of the chip. That way the heat from these 2 heat sinks on the front and these 3 heat sinks on the back is enough to cool off all 126 chips. So this S19J board has 126 and the S19 Pro has 114. So this has more chips actually than this one. But this board is more reliable, slightly more reliable than the regular Pro. Even though this board is not a bad board, the Pro is a good board. It works just fine. But after running these Pros for 2 years and running this J Pro for 1 year, I can say that these are more reliable. They do not break down as fast as these ones, but these don't break down fast at all. So they're very good boards. Don't think that just because this one's better does not mean that this one's bad. They're both very good boards. They're very reliable. You know, if you buy 1,000 of these guys, maybe 20 of them will, well, not the miners, 20 boards. So if you buy 1,000 miners, you'll have 3,000 boards, right? 3,000 of these boards. Maybe 20, 30 will go down in 2 years. But for this one, if you buy 1,000 miners of this J Pro, maybe 10 boards will go down in 2 years. So they're more reliable, but they're just really, really solid boards. And you can see that they got rid of all these chips, which means you have less logical, places on the board where there could be a fault, where there could be an error. Because the less chips you use, the less capacitors you have, the less areas on the board that could go wrong. And since this one has basically nothing on the rear side, all the chips are on the front, it really, really reduces the areas for the faults, areas for bugs, areas for glitches, areas where there could be a problem with like corrosion or something like that. There's less of it on this board versus this one. This one, you can see how many chips we have on this back. This is just the back of the board. You can see that collection of logical chips here. You can see the collection of resistors here. Also here, look at all those resistors. Look at all those chips right there. All of that is missing on this one. On the back, there's nothing there, absolutely nothing. Everything's on the front. If I take off these 2 heat sinks, yes, you'll see resistors between the chips, but that's the same thing for this guy if I flip it over to the front. And I'll show you guys here. If I flip it over, if I remove these 2 heat sinks, you'll also see a bunch of chips, resistors and things like that in between the chips. So now let's talk about the signals traveling through the board. So this one has 114 chips. Each chip has 5 signals. The RI, the CO, the RO, all that stuff. So it's got 5 signals going through each chip. If along the way any signal is disrupted, any signal, so it goes like this, right? If any signal is disrupted along the way on any of the 114 chips, the board will not mine. It'll stop, it won't mine, it will say, hey, chip number 48 has a problem, it's not detecting the chip, whatever, and you got to look into why 48 has a problem. There's a special tool you buy, you plug it in here to this connection port here, and you can find out which chip is having the problem, and then you can fix it. On this board, we have 126 chips. The signal is also traveled along the way, basically identical to this one here, but it has more chips, right? It has 126 chips. So that is 12 chips more than this guy, even though they both have the same efficiency. And they both run at, I think they both run at the same frequency. I think it's 525 as I remember. I don't know for sure, but I think they run at the same frequency. So the question you could ask is like, why does this board have more chips? This board has less chips. They have the same efficiency, but this board is 104 terahash and this board is 110. How can this board have less chips, have higher hash rate, and the same efficiency? So for that question, I mean, I can kind of speculate on that, judging by taking apart S19 pluses and S9s. I would say that the reason for that, most likely, you have to double check this, don't know for sure, but the reason for that is that the chips on this board are most likely a different variation. They might be a generation less. So meaning that maybe this is generation, 3 of a certain chip class for the ASIC, a certain nanometer, and this is generation 2. So what happens is, to compensate a worse chip, like say on this one is a slightly less efficient chip, less quality chip, to compensate for that difference, they add more of them. So by adding more and lowering the frequency, or basically matching the frequency to this one, you can get the same hash rate, the same efficiency, but the downside is you need more chips. You need 126, which then is compensated by the fact that you're using a last gen chip. You're not using the newest chip. So you can compensate for that. And that works out in various other industries, in the tech industry, where you can use last gen technology, but by downclocking it, scaling it down, providing less power, kind of manipulating the algorithm and the way the chip is functioning, you can actually get the same efficiency even from a slightly older chip by just running it slower. Now, this also applies to downclocking the board. So if you got Hive OS, or you have Brains OS, or you have asic.to, you put special different firmware and you mine off that firmware, you can actually downscale these boards and you can get even better efficiency. So I'll give you an example. We tried out the S19J Pro and the S19 Pro firmware from Bitmain, that new firmware where you can downclock, when you can run it in low power mode. And what we ended up seeing is, after running the low power mode on this board and the low power mode on this board, we actually increased our efficiency from 29.5 watts a terahash to 25 watts a terahash, which is a very good improvement in efficiency. So basically now you can grab these same S19 boards, run them at 25 watts a terahash rather than 29.5 watts a terahash, so you can then, you have more efficiency, so you're making more money per watt. You're making more money. Obviously, you need more miners because now you're saving electricity. But in those scenarios where you have, say, pretty high electricity bills in your area, where you're paying like 8 cents, 9, 10 cents, and you're running these from a small little farm you have, a 500 kVA farm, 100 kVA farm, your electricity bill is not very low. In those scenarios, you run these in low power mode, and you'll drop to 25 watts terahash, and you're golden. You just improved it. Your profits went up dramatically, actually. If Bitcoin price is down, your profits will dramatically increase from lowering down your power consumption. Because your number one cost is power consumption, especially if you have like a small farm, 100 kVA. Number one cost is power consumption. All right, now let's move on to the questions. So I'm going to put down the camera here. And I'm going to go over, read some of your guys' questions, and then just talk to you guys on chat and come back and keep recording here. All right, so take a look at you guys' chat here. Panaman Mom's Kitchen. I'm new in these things, and I wanted to know that which ASIC is good for me under 1,000. I have free electricity and Wi-Fi. Okay, how much electricity do you have? Are you talking about like a home, mining farm? Like you want to just run a little bit, of miners, like say 50 amps worth of miners. You just have a little panel, home panel, or are you talking about running a bigger farm? So that's going to depend, what I would recommend for that. I'm getting Antminer L3 Plus for 362. Is this a good deal? L3 Plus. So for Litecoin miners, did you run the calculations on that? I haven't run Litecoin calculations for a very long time. I haven't mined any Litecoin for years actually. So I do not know. What's your ROI on that? I mean, you're paying free electricity, but even at free, obviously your ROI on it eventually. Okay. Just unlimited electricity, total budget 5,000 for farm. Yeah, 362. You have to run in a calculator. What's your ROI on that? Type in like 4 cents. Let's go in something really, really cheap. Type in 4 cents and how fast will you get your money back on that L3 Plus? I mean, if it's like a year or less, then sure, that's fine. That's at 4 cents. Type in 4 cents. Don't put in free, because free is obviously not really fair comparison. I want to see what you get at like 4 cents. And again, if it's like under a year, if it's like a year, very close to a year, then sure, that's a good deal. What I would recommend for you to do is, you research like maybe L3 Plus or research as Bitcoin miners. You can get a used one, right? Get a used Bitcoin like S19, regular S19 actually. You don't even need Pro. You don't need really efficiency. Just get a regular S19. They run at like 95 terahashes at 3,300 watts. And just do that. Now let's see, you have 5,000. So those miners are, I mean, I'm sure you can find some for like 1,500 bucks, maybe 1,200, somewhere around there. I mean, used ones. So you can get maybe like 4 of them, but then you're basically comparing it to an L3 Plus at 362. So run those calculations to see which one is the best. All right, any other questions here? What do you guys want me to talk about? The S19 J Pro, S19 Pro? Let me know. S17 in 2023 is good for farm. Okay, S17s run really, really bad. They're very bad miners. They break all the time. Their heat sinks fall off. Their solder is bad. Bitmain did a mistake on their solder. They changed something there where the heat sinks just fall off. So I would say don't get the S17s at all, right? They're horrible miners. S19 is one of the best Bitmain miners ever owned. It's very, very good. They do not break. And if they ever do have an asic problem, like one of the chips is bad, then they're very easy to fix. They don't have like like 10 chips fry and a bunch of resistors go bad or something. No, they just have like one chip has a problem, needs to be resoldered or something like that. It's fine. No solder problems, nothing like that. Very, 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 very good boards. Yeah, I see DJ Mines is doing a live video right now. Just jumped in there, commenting on their live video. DJ Mines, I can't hear him. I turned his live off. Oh, he's not live anymore. I think he just went not live. And Red Panda Gaming. All right. Any other questions before I jump in there and continue on with the ASIC? Otherwise, I'm going to hop back in there and show you guys around the board. All right, I'm just chatting here with DJ Mines and Red Panda Mining. All right, let's go back to the video. Okay, let's continue. All right, so the differences, talked about that. Now, let's compare the S19 versus the S17. Since you asked that question about the S17. And I'll show you why the S17 is a very horrible board. It's one of the worst boards I think Bitmain ever made. It is a piece of junk hashboard. Never buy an S17, all right? Absolute garbage board. I mean, maybe if it's like close to free and you want to get them for like $200 or something like that, sure. But do not pay any good money for them. All right, so what I meant by the heat sinks falling off the S17, what happens is, you see these heat sinks here? Two big heat sinks. For the S17, even the front has those individual heat sinks, even the front. Just like on the back, you can see individual heat sinks on the S19 Pro. On the front, you only have these two big ones. On the back, you have all of these individual ones. On the S17, you have the front and back with these heat sinks. And what happens is, your hashboard is mining just fine, it's working good, 6 months later, then for some reason it just stops working. You take apart the miner, you pull out a hashboard, and these heat sinks just fall off. Like 5 of them will just fall off, just for no reason at all. It's a brand new miner. They just fall off. You take it, you kind of shake it a little bit, and then more fall off. Another 5, 10 fall off. So you have to send it in for repair. So the solder is coming off, which is not supposed to happen, right? These asics, they only get up to 90 degrees Celsius. Solder does not melt until you get to like 130, 140, 150, depends on what kind of solder you use. It does not melt until you get up to that temperature, which means that if the heat sinks are falling off, it's a solder problem. They use the wrong solder, they use the wrong way to weld it on. Whatever was going on, they really messed up bad on the S17s. The engineer, whoever designed that board, is a loser, and hopefully they got fired and they never work at Bitmain again, because that was an absolute catastrophe of a job. The worst ever. Like on this S19 Pro board, we have also all these heat sinks on the back. And you might think, well, what about these ones? Don't these fall off? No, they don't. These S19 Pro this hashboard, even with these individual heat sinks, none of them have ever fallen off. And we have 200 of these miners, S19 Pro, none of the heat sinks fell off, ever. How many hashboards we had a problem with? Maybe about 20, 30 hashboards we had a problem out of 200. So that's 600 hashboards. Out of 600, we had about 20, 30 that had a problem over the past 2-3 years. Not a single hashboard's heat sink ever fell off, ever. So that's the difference. On an S17, we had about 50 miners out of the 300 initially we had, S17 Plus. 50 of those miners' heat sinks just fell off. We had to send the hashboard in for repair, and then when they repaired them, they come back, they're not working, there's problems with it, because even for Bitmain, it was hard to repair them. Under warranty, they had to repair them, but it's hard for them to repair them because the hashboards are such junk that they just don't work. Now, they got rid of that whole entire problem on the J, right? Which that problem only existed for the S17 Plus. It does not exist for the S19 series. But on the J, they went a step further, and they even got rid of those individual ones. They just went straight up, on the back, just flat, nothing else. It's perfect. So now there's zero chance of you having a heatsink problem. Also, another thing that they changed from the S17 Plus, which again I think was another mistake, is they use solder on the heatsink. So when they are putting the heatsink onto the chip, instead of putting it on thermal paste like they're doing here, they're using thermal paste. They're pasting it on, and then they're using screws to hold it on, right? On the S17 Plus, they're soldering on a heatsink onto a chip. Imagine that. You're soldering on a heatsink onto a chip, and then that chip is soldered onto the board. Imagine the amount of stupid you have to be to design a board like that. But that's what Bitmain did, a very stupid design. Whoever pushed that through, again, I hope they're fired, they're gone at Bitmain. So that's the difference. Don't get the S17 Plus. Now, talking about other boards like the S9, very, very old Bitmain miner. That one also is using solder for the chips. It is still, I still highly consider that to be a huge mistake. This is a way better setup on the S19. But even then on the S9, they use proper solder, so your solder was not coming off. Your solder was not bad solder. It was not just flying off like on S17. So even though it's a bad design, it still held up pretty good. The S9 is a very solid miner in terms of quality. It's a very inefficient miner. It doesn't make any money unless you have free electricity. But it's a solid miner in terms of reliability. It will last forever. You plug that guy in, he'll mine for 10 years, no problem. They're still mining on those, right? You can still get an S9 board, S9 miner, plug it in, it'll mine. A lot of people do that. A lot of people, like in very, very poor countries, like where there's 100% free electricity, it's a poor country, so for them, you know, making $10 a day, $5 a day is good income. So they get a couple of these S9s, they plug them in, they make $5 a day, or maybe a couple of dollars a day, like in Africa somewhere, and they can live off of that, right? That's enough for them. So making $5 a day, 5 times 30 is $150 a month, and $150 a month in Africa is decent. So they could get S9s, plug them into free electricity, and get paid like that. So it's a very good setup for them. And it's solid. So like, again, like in that situation, if someone says, hey, I have free electricity, I live in Zimbabwe, or I live in Sudden or something like that, and I have, you know, I have 10,000 watts, what do you want me to get? You know, I don't have that much money. Yeah, just get some S9s. They cost like $50. You can get those, plug them in, and get paid, you know, pretty decent for free electricity. All right, let me go take a look at your guys' comments. Also want to see what DJ Mine is doing. I'll fix my mic here. All right, throw in some questions, guys. See, there's 6 people watching right now on YouTube. I also have this streaming on Twitter and Facebook. So throw in some questions. Yeah, we should all do like a live, not like a talk show, but kind of just hanging out, asking each other questions between me, DJ Mines, you know, Red Panda, and who was that other guy that also does mining videos? Because that'd be pretty interesting. Just get together, talk about ASIC, talk about experience mining of GPUs, talk about, you know, Hive OS, things like that. That'd be pretty cool. So if you guys want to hit up Red Panda Mining or DJ Mines and be like, hey, yo, let's do like a live together, you know, all 3 of us jump in. Hello, Michael Flores. Yeah, we're talking about S19, S19J Pro, S19 Pro, talking about differences between them, also comparing them to S17 Plus, you know, talking about L3 Plus, the Litecoin miner. So if you want to throw in some questions, Michael, anyone else that's watching this stream, otherwise I'm going to continue talking about the differences between them. And yeah, so give you guys another 1-2 minutes, and then we'll continue. And the video is live, so don't worry about that. I just placed it down next to the hashboards. It's not like a still shot or anything. It's just sitting there for anyone that's joining. Hold on, guys. I'm just reading the DJ Mines comments here. All right, so I have some more questions here from Michael. Would an XBE Hydro be a good investment? Yes, it would, but you would need water. You would need a special mining container for the XBE Hydro. It is, because your efficiency is 21.5, I think it is, for the Hydro. So you get 250 terahashes. I think it was at 5,200 or 5,400 watts. It is a good investment, especially that in the future, when they release new firmware, new low power mode for the Hydro system, you can basically lower that even more. You know how for the S19 you were getting 29.5, then with the low power mode now you're getting 25 watts a terahash. So for the Hydro, if in the future they release a low power mode, or they release, or even if you use custom firmware like from HiveOS or from Brains, you can lower that even more. I'm guessing probably like 18, 17, 16 watts a terahash. I'm sure you could, because if you're using 5200 watts on a standard 250 terahash hydro, then if you lower it down to 4,500 watts or 4,000 watts, now your efficiency is going way down. Now your frequency on those chips is dropping dramatically, which would increase your performance. So if you buy the hydros today, it does not mean you're going to be stuck at 21.5 watts a terahash. You can probably go down to 18, 17, 16, in a year or two. So it's a pretty solid miner, but you need water. You have to use a special mining container for those hydros, and and so on. There's some videos you can watch on YouTube from Merkle. It's a mining facility down in Spokane, Washington, and you can watch those videos and see how it's set up with the hydro over there. Do you ever have control boards go bad? Seems like the S19 control boards are fairly solid. Yes, they are. We do not know about the standard S19 board. Don't know about the standard S19 board, but for the Pro and the J Pro, they're very solid boards. Yes, they never break. Like, they never break. Once in a while, we get a weird glitch, and we send those in for repairs, like where you try to save settings on a board and it won't save, or it'll lose the saved settings, so it'll lose the pool. So it'll basically mine for a day or two, and then after a day or two, for some reason, the pool will just be like, oh, the miner disconnected, and you log into the miner, and it says, no data on the pool. All the information is deleted. So it like loses data. I think the memory chips on it, it goes bad or something like that. That's very rare. Out of the 400 S19J Pro miners we operate, about 2 of those control boards had that issue, and we had to send it in. So I think it's a memory chip issue on those. Very, very solid. Same thing for the J Pros and the regular Pros. Very solid. So if you're asking a question about the S19, just a regular, not a Pro version, I'm assuming it probably has the same control board, a very similar control board. Then yes, I would think that they have the same quality. On your newest build out, why didn't you go with Bitmain Hydro setup? 100K all in with switch gear and everything. Okay, so again, you need water for that. Not all sites have that, and that is an option we were looking into for hydros. Except for hydros, if you're hosting hydros, right now it's a little harder to find hosting for hydros. It's a harder sell because it's a newer tech. If I tell someone, hey, you want to host ASICs? They say, sure. And what's the chance they want to host hydros? The chance is very low, right? They most likely they want to bring their own miners. Well, what miners do they have? Well, they have What's miner, they have S19s, like the regular air miners. So like basically 99% of all miners right now that have miners, they are on air. So it's going to be very hard to sell a hydro setup. The way you do it with hydro is you have to either find someone that wants to buy hydros or someone that owns hydros, and that's very hard to find right now. I'm currently running Z9s and wanting to add some BTC miners. Okay, yeah. What I would recommend you do, Michael Flowers, is buy S19 Pro or J Pro, buy those used, and put them on low power mode. That's what I would recommend you do. Right now is a really good time to jump in on those because the prices are down for basically all ASICs, and not everybody knows about the low power mode, the free firmware that Bitmain gives out. You download that, you try it out. We tried it out. 25 watts a terahash we get on those S19s. Very, very solid. Do that. And wattage usage is 2,800 watts per S19. It runs at 77 terahashes. It's around there. So do that, and you can get them used. So if you want some miners, you can check out our site as well, cryptollc.org. We sell those S19 used, new, hydros, whatever you want, L3+. So check out our site, check out our chart. But again, prices change all the time, so like we don't log in and update the prices every single day. That'd be like a waste of time. We have general prices in there, and if you're looking for today's price, we can give you that, but you basically have to email us and let us know what you're looking for. Old but solid all overclock to plus 60. Yeah, you can overclock those Z9s. You have the Z9 regular Z9s or the Z9 minis? Which ones do you have? Do you primarily use the stock firmware on Brains? Okay, we use stock. We tried out Brains before. Their percentage is too high. They want too much percent. And then also, when I tried talking to them, like I met them. We went to the Bitcoin conference in Miami last year, and I met them down there, and I tried talking to them about fixing the issues with their S19, because we're trying to downclock them and get better efficiency without sacrificing the speed. So we're trying to, well, not downclock, we're trying to lower the power usage without sacrificing speed on the S19s. And what happened was, when we were talking to their like lead engineer or whatever, he wasn't really, he wasn't being nice. He was basically saying, well, we did our test and this is what it is, and I'm like, well, no, it's not, because I tested it on 20 miners at our mining farm and our efficiency was not like that. It was worse than that. So basically, instead of trying to figure out and solve problems, he just started arguing about that I'm wrong and that it's the efficiency is not as bad as I say it is, which I tested it on 20 miners at different times of the day over the course of a week, and I tested it at every single one of those miners and did an average, and I know what the efficiency is, but he was just basically arguing. And so after that, I was like, all right, whatever. You guys' percentage is too high, and you guys don't want to fix any of the issues. So we stopped using Brains after that. It's kind of the backstory for Brains there. Thank you for the info. Will do. It's Michael Flores. Regular Z9. Okay, interesting. We used to have some Z9 minis. Stock 42K souls, overclock 55 to 60. Nice. eFUD firmware. Okay, interesting. Yeah, we haven't run anything on Zcash for some time. I used to mine Zcash on GPUs before, when like ASIC miners came out for it. So that's shows you how long ago I've been mining on different cryptos. Oh, by the way, guys, interesting fact. I used to mine Bitcoin when Bitcoin was $300. So just throwing that out there. I'm going to hold that and always pat myself on the back for mining Bitcoin at $300. All right, next question. On my S19J 104, okay, that's the units we use, except it's a Pro version. Is this a Pro version? I set a power target of 26 and I get about 94 on Brains. Oh, okay, you're using Brains. Okay, what's the current Brains percentage they take? We haven't used it for over a year, and last time I checked it was like 2 to 3, something like that, or 2.8. I forget what Brains percentage is. Let me know what it is. By the way, throw in some more questions about the S19 board before I jump back in there and continue the video, continue that whole inspection we're doing here. Maybe you guys want to talk about, or you want to take a look at some of the resistors. Maybe you want me to zoom in and show you guys the heat sinks or the PIC processor, things like that. Whatever interests you. Let me know in chat. I want to jump back into the video in about 30 seconds. Throw in a question. What was the website? It's cryptollc.org. Actually, I'll just type it in for you. There you go. How do you handle the zero ASIC error? Okay, here we go. Okay, zero ASIC error. Okay, so how this happens, right? I'll tell you guys some interesting glitchy stuff that we've been seeing going on with these S19. Very interesting, and it's a good way to save money. I'll show you guys here in about 30 seconds. And we'll talk about that zero ASIC error. Okay, next one, S19 temp sensor. I'll tell you how to fix that temp sensor problem as well. All right, let's do that. Let's talk about zero ASIC and temp sensors. Let me go back here to the hashboards. Okay, so temp sensors. This is what we do on an S19 Pro and S19J Pro. If we get a temp sensor error, usually like 99% of the time, the temp sensors or one of the chips that's connected or runs some logic into the temp sensor has dust, particles, garbage, something like that on the chip, and maybe there's like there's like a metal fragment that might be shorting the chip. So what we do when we have temp sensor errors, this is what we do. We take out the board, we put rubbing alcohol all along these chips, we grab a toothbrush, and we just toothbrush all these chips with rubbing alcohol, right? Get like 99% alcohol, and then just run a toothbrush all along these chips. Then what you do is you flip over, you do the same thing over here, especially on this chip. These chips that are sticking out right here. The temp sensors are basically around this area. And right here. Then you do the same thing over here. This section of chips, and over here. All these chips. Grab an alcohol, run a toothbrush on it, blow it out with air compressor, plug it back in, and it'll start working. You know, most of the time that fixes the temp sensor issue. Now the other thing that can be run off the board if you get a temp sensor problem is you actually need to flash the EEPROM. So you want to flash the EEPROM firmware. You know, sometimes you get that weird error where it says Hashboard, you know, it says temp sensor, but it also says like can't find EEPROM not loading, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you get those errors, and the way to fix that one is flash the EEPROM. So you have to buy a special tool. You can find them online, you know, maybe an EEPROM flasher. I forget the one we use, I think it's like asic Farm or something like that. It's a Russian tool, made by Russians, so you have to buy that one. It's like $1,000 or something like that. And then you can flash EEPROM. And you can also change the frequency. So that's how you fix temp sensor most of the time. Now, if you tried all those things and it does not work, then yes, there's a temp sensor. It actually is dead and you need to replace it. So in that situation, you have to ship it out for repairs. You can attempt to fix it. We don't do that. We just ship it out for repairs because they break so infrequently, right? They almost never break that we didn't even bother to really fix the issue if it ever came up because it's such a rare issue. For the S19 J Pro, same thing, right? You get a temp sensor issue, which on this board, it happens less often than the S19 Pro. On the J Pro, it's less often. You do the same thing, rubbing alcohol, this area, all of these chips. There's nothing on the back over there, remember, it's just a solid piece of metal. So you just rub an alcohol that section, that's it. Plug it back in, it should be working. Now, let's talk about zero ASIC problem, right? The zero ASIC issue we get sometimes. And we also get them. It happens more often on the S19 board, again, rather than the S19J. What we do in that situation is, first thing you do is make sure that your nuts are tightened here for electricity coming in. Sometimes they are a little bit loose and is giving a bad signal. You want to tighten those. You also want to do the same exact thing, rubbing alcohol, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to fix the issue the easiest and cheapest way, right? You don't want to take apart the board. You don't want to ship it for repairs. So what's the cheapest, easiest thing you can do? Take it out and rub in alcohol with toothbrush. Just do that, plug it back in, and it will fix like 99% of the time. That's the way you go. Oh, also, don't forget to use a compressor and run a compressor in the front and the back after you are done with the toothbrush. Now for the S19, let me talk about that weird glitch I just mentioned earlier. So what we get for these boards, S19 J Pro, is it's very, very interesting. So you have a miner that's running just fine. Now for some reason, board number, position number 1, so board 1, there's board 0, 1, and 2. Board number 1 has an issue. The board stopped working, and you log into the miner, you take a look, and it says 0 ASIC. You restart the miner, it doesn't work. You update the firmware, it doesn't work. You're thinking, okay, what can it be? You know what it is? It's such a weird glitch. So listen to this. You know what it is? It's the cold air coming into the miner directly. Move the miner to a warmer place. That's it. That's how you fix it. And how I found out what that is. How I found out what the issue is I was getting these errors and it was so weird. I was like, why is this happening? Why, if I take out I took out the bad hashboard and I plugged it into a different miner in a different location and it started working there. And I was like, well, that's weird. Why is it doing that? Also, if I ran the miner sideways, it also just, the 0 ASIC disappeared. And then, when I take out the board, I don't see any issues with it, but it's showing me 0 ASIC. What's going on? Like if I ran it on my test bench, right? I take out the whole miner, I put it on my test bench, the 0 ASIC is gone. I plug it back into its regular position, 0 ASIC comes back on. So after seeing that, I was thinking maybe it's the airflow. It might be the airflow. So I took the whole entire miner, plugged it into a different location that has less airflow. And because of that less airflow, the air is warmer in that area. I plugged it into that location, bam, zero ASIC is gone. The miner is working fine. Every single hashboard is fine. It's such a weird glitch for these J boards. And it's very, very rare. It's very rare. Like out of our like 200 J Pro boards we have, or I keep forgetting, mixing up how many we have. It was like 200, something like that of them. This problem is probably like on 6 boards. You know, 6 boards out of 200 miners. So out of 600 miners, like 6 of them have this issue. And that's the way you fix them. We just move them to a different location. Bam, it started working. So very, very interesting, and it's been working fine for months. And we had like 6 of them, so I just moved them around. Boom, they all started working. So these types of things, you have to kind of try and see what works and try different scenarios, because these boards, they're like living, breathing, machines, and you have to figure out what is the general problem with the J Pro? What is the general problem with the regular Pro? Temp Sensors, zero ASIC. That's basically it. Temp Sensors also get zero ASIC, but less often. Zero ASIC more often, never has a temp sensor problem for us. Always zero ASIC problem. Fix it by moving it and using rubbing alcohol, and that's it. That's how we fix those. All right, I'm going to put down the camera again here, see what you guys got on the chat. Yeah, Crypto Craig, yeah, it is weird. I know, it's such a weird thing. Like, we never had that on S17 Plus, we never had that on the S19 Pro. I never had that on S9, only S19 J Pro. It's very, very, very weird, because usually zero ASIC, it means that the signal is not traveling through all the chips. But here, if I just move it to a warmer area, now the signal travels. Just silly, silly thing. And instead of tinkering around and trying to fix it or something like that, and be like, oh, I'm gonna take apart the heat sinks and just move it to a warmer area, the problem solved. So that's what we did. Do you ever have any issues with getting too cold of air into your container, causing issues other than zero ASIC? No, we don't. We never have that. Our filtration system and our tarp and everything we have, even when it's 20 degrees outside and snowing and it's freezing outside, we never have any issues, because we block all the humidity. The air is actually being slowed down because as it's really, really cold outside, your fans spin slower, so now you're actually sucking less air. So it's fine. You never have any issues. You can run these things in some, somewhere in Siberia in some freezing death weather. You'll be fine. Also, do you have a lot of boards that will have, let me read this again. Also, do you have a lot of boards that will have the can only find X of 76, for example, so you only find a few of the chips? Yeah, we have that, and it's kind of basically the same situation, same reason as the zero ASIC, because if you restart the miner a couple of times, it'll find like 5, then it'll find 7, then it'll find 5, then it finds 0, then it finds 0, then it finds 5 again, on and off. We try the same scenario that I just explained. And if none of that works, basically I would apply the same exact scenario to finding 5 ASICs and finding 0 ASICs. Same exact scenario. Try that, and if nothing, then you just try to fix it yourself or send it in for repairs. Off topic, but I noticed you also do your videos in Russian. I hear you no accent in English, and my Russian wife hears little to no accent either. Care to share your background there? Chris Britton, you got a Russian wife? That's good. Yeah, Russian girls are the most prettiest, Chris. Okay, so yeah, I'm from Russia. I was born in Russia. I can talk in Russian. Я могу сейчас по-русски разговаривать, как угодно, могу все на русском говорить, могу говорить про асики, Bitmain miners и так далее, все угодно. So I can speak in Russian. No problem at all. I was born in Russia, came to the United States, and I was like 6. And you know, went to school from first grade. But I never forget Russian though, because I always talk in Russian when I'm not on camera. So I'm talking to you guys in English because I'm forcing myself to talk in English. But if I'm off camera, I talk in Russian. And the reason probably why you don't hear an accent that much, because I do know I have one. Like if you really pay attention, you probably hear it. But the reason why I don't really have one is because I've been going to school, you know, in the United States from first grade. I also went to college, you know, took a couple of classes in a university, you know, did all that stuff. So my English is pretty decent. I can also be like an interpreter for Russian to English or English to Russian. Okay, ever have any issues with humidity or notice any humidity issues with the boards? Nope, not with us. All of our mining facilities, we take care of our boards, we take care of our miners, we take care of the facility. We know that in the long term, if you do not take care of them, they will corrode, right? You don't want them to corrode. We want them to last forever. So the way we manage the farm is we have 0 corrosion, right? Absolute 0. I can walk up to any miner, pull out a board, I look at it, it looks perfect. Looks perfect. Like these two hashboards I'm showing you guys, we're going to be sending these out to repairers. These are the 2 bad ones. They have that problem of 0 asic actually. I just brought them in here for the video. But these 2 ones, you see what condition they're in, right? They just have a little bit of dust. That's it. They're perfect. I mean, if I just wipe them with a cloth, they're going to look brand new, even though they're a year old. And the S19 Pro is 2 years old. So that's how good we take care of the hashboards. Perfect condition. And so if you do it like that, you'll have no issues. You'll have no issues. Humidity will not be an issue. You got to run your airflow properly, and you'll never have corrosion or anything like that. All right. Throw in a couple of, you know, any last questions you guys want to. Otherwise, I'm going to be dropping the stream here. It's almost an hour, basically 57 minutes. Showed me 57 on my YouTube here. So throw in any last questions, and otherwise, I'm going to be out. What do you think about the XP and using aluminum plates versus the multi-layer PCBs on older? All components on one side. I don't know. I actually don't know that one. What do I think? You know, I never had an XP in my hands, you know, to take a look at it. So, yeah, I don't know. You know, judging by the S19, J, and the Pro, and all that stuff, it's a very solid board. So I assume that the XP version of the S19 is pretty freaking solid as well. Due to heat, harder to work on. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really done the research on the XPs. I mean, in terms of other miners talking about their reliability, I have not read into that. I did hear one time that they were saying that some of the boards, like if you have a bad board in S19 XP, then the whole miner does not work if you have one bad board. Well, that's the same thing for the J Pro. Like on the J Pro, if one of the hash boards has a problem, the whole miner will go down. It'll only mine if there's 3 hash boards. It's a very stupid thing that Bitmain did with the S19 J Pro. With the S19 Pro, you can have one board running, it'll run. Right? You can have 2 boards, or 1 board, or 3 boards, doesn't matter. But the J Pro cares for some reason. And I think that applies to the XPs as well. I heard that also applies. But again, we never ran any XPs. We don't have any XPs. I didn't really do research on their reliability online, so I do not know that question, the answer to that. Anna 93 got a bunch of what, church, working out, then home, something like that. Interesting. That's what Anna wants to do. Okay, do you have any easy fixes for PSU issues that you use? No, not for that. The PSUs, they rarely ever break for the S19J and the S19 Pro. They very rarely ever break. The 2 issues we have, quickly before I end the stream, for those PSUs, I'll tell you the differences between them. So for the S19 Pro, the PSU never has fan problems. The fans, those 3 big fans on the PSU, they never break, ever. They work forever. For some reason, once in a while, like once every couple of months, a PSU just dies for no reason at all. You know, it just dies. And the miner won't power on, the PSU won't power on, and we just take it out. We have spares, we send it out for repairs, and that's it. We never take it apart to actually fix it because the PSU is not that expensive. It's $130 brand new. And to fix it, I think they charge like $50 or $30 or whatever. So we just send it in for repairs. Now the S19J Pro, those ones don't really die. They work just fine. They work really good, but they have a different issue. The fans on the S19J Pro PSUs, they die, right? And that's very interesting. Like a lot of them die. The PSU still works fine. It's working. But I come up to a miner and I see like 2 dead little fans, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. Why did these die? It's the miner's 6 months old, and 2 fans on the PSU are dead. It's still mining fine and all that, but it's another like glitch, not a glitch, but a manufacturing problem with the J Pro PSUs. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, it's not a big deal because it's still mining fine, and even if you need to send it in for repairs, it's cheap to repair. And even if you need to buy some spares, it's only $130. So those are the differences between them. They rarely ever break, so we don't bother fixing them. All right, Chris Braden, Russian women are the most beautiful. When you get to it, I hope you show the electricity bill of the panels specifically, and if you get around having to use GFIs. Yeah, hopefully. So we're still looking for hosting for that farm. Hopefully we find it any day now. And when we do, we're going to have more content talking about how we're building out that farm. You know, as you can see, it's basically almost done. It's basically done. We're just waiting for hosting, anyone that wants to jump in and host with us. And once we get that client, they sign up, bam, we finish the farm to their needs. Whatever miner they're using, we'll customize the farm for that miner. And yes, Russian women are the most beautiful. That's right, they are. You know, if you do some research on it, the most beautiful people in the world are Slavic people. And it's not my opinion, it's an actual fact. You can look it up online. The most beautiful women are Slavic, and the most beautiful girl, technically, if you look it up online, is Swedish. So if she's Swedish, then they consider her to be the most beautiful. But that's a country. So as a country, Swedish girls, technically, that's what they say. I don't agree with that, but that's what they say. But if you take a people like Slavic, Germanic, Anglo-Saxon and stuff like that, if you take a people, the most beautiful girls are Slavic, which means Russian. And if you take out of the Slavic, also all of this is part of the research, if you take out of the Slavic people, which is Polish, Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians, if you take out of them, what is the most beautiful girl? It's Russian. So if you have a Russian girl, there you go. You got basically one of the best. Now, of course, not all Russian girls are beautiful. There's a lot of ugly ones. But in general. Last question. Do you have any quick fixes for pick errors? Just a good cleaning? Yes. Do the cheapest possible fix. Do that. The cheapest possible fix. I mean, grab a toothbrush, grab some rubbing alcohol, and just do that. I mean, the chance that the pick processor is burnt, the chance of that is very low. The chance that it's dead is almost zero, right? It just has a connection problem, most likely. And again, even when we had like 1 or 2 times we had a board where the pick processor actually fried. You can see that there's a hole in the pick processor. It burnt for some reason. Yeah, we would just resolder a new pick and it was fine. You can do that. Pick processors are actually pretty easy to fix. I'll show you here real quick. And they got rid of the pick processors for the S19J Pro. But see that little pick right there? This guy? He's got big, fat legs. So it's easy to remove the pick, and it's easy to weld a new one on. For your information, XP boards do not have picks. Another complaint. Oh, it's a complaint? Oh, really? They're complaining about it? I guess. Maybe that's what's causing the problems. I don't know. I mean, I tend to look at things like the less components you have, the better. But if it's having a negative impact on XP boards, then I guess so. I wouldn't know about this. But I would assume that if they got rid of the pick, they got rid of the pick on on a lot of the J Pro boards. Like over here, there are no pick processors, right? Or processor. There is no pick processor. They got rid of it, and I'm like, okay, that's good. I don't want extra components there. That's great. Get rid of it. The less the better. But who knows what it does on XP. All right, well, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thanks for all the questions. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. And we're going to be posting more videos. So if you guys want to host with us, go to cryptollc.org. If you want to buy GPUs or ASICs, go to cryptollc.org. We sell GPUs, ASICs, S19s, S19 XPs, Pros, Js, WhatsMiner. We also sell GPUs, 3080s, 4080s, 3070s, whatever you want. Go to cryptollc.org. We have a spreadsheet there, and we can provide you with current prices, but not today prices, right? Keep that in mind. They're not today prices. You have to contact us and ask us, what is today's price? Because it changes all the time. Changes all the time, and for us to always go in there and change everything every single second would be a waste of time. So go to cryptollc.org, and that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys like it, and until next time, bye.